you are not free. You are a prisoner of your own emotions. You walk through your days believing you hold the reins. You plan, you decide, you chase goals, you believe you choose. But every choice you think is yours is already shaded by fear, anger, desire, and need. You wake up with a plan, but the first insult, the first rejection, the first longing derails you. You think you are steering your life, but your emotions are the true captains, steering with invisible hands, guiding you into patterns you cannot even name. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Look around. How often do you act and later wonder why your own feelings betrayed you? How many times has a fear you barely acknowledge stopped you from speaking, from reaching, from living fully? You are convinced of freedom, yet you remain a slave, dancing to the rhythm of impulses you never learned to master. Imagine invisible ropes tied to your chest, arms, and legs. Every desire, every attachment, every expectation binds you tighter. You smile in public, but inside, your anger grips your thoughts. You nod in agreement, but your need for approval pulls your strings. You reach for love, but it is a leash, pulling you back whenever you try to walk freely. These ropes are subtle. You do not see them, and that is their power. They twist and knot around your mind, forming a cage you never realized you entered willingly. You may think they are your choices, your passions, your commitments, but they are chains disguised as comfort. Even your anger, your resentment, your heartbreak, they are not enemies. They are the jailers, making sure you never fully step into freedom. You watch your life unfold, thinking you are free. But the shadows behind your eyes know the truth. You are tethered. And this bondage exacts a cost, slow but undeniable. Each day, you remain unaware. You surrender fragments of your identity. Dreams die quietly because fear whispers, "Not now, maybe later." Your joy dims because desire latches to disappointment. Your creativity fades because anger and regret take up space that should belong to curiosity. You do not notice it until one day you wake up and realize you are someone you do not recognize. The life you imagined for yourself has been shaped not by your vision, but by the silent hand of emotion. And the cruelest part, the world applauds your efforts, praises your discipline, and admires your life, while inside, you feel a quiet despair. You cannot escape the feeling that you are acting, performing, and obeying scripts written by impulses older than memory. This is the painful truth. Real freedom is not found in circumstances, achievements, or the approval of others. Real freedom begins when you look honestly at yourself and see how your emotions have been guiding you, shaping you, imprisoning you. It is a terrifying thought, because it means you have been living as a shadow of yourself, moving through life while the chains of desire and fear tighten around your core. Yet recognizing this is the first step. The first moment of clarity is the spark that can ignite true liberation. You are not broken. You are not lost. You are simply asleep to your own inner patterns. And when you wake, you step into a freedom no one can grant you. A life where you finally choose the path, instead of being chosen by emotion. You are free when you master yourself. Comfort is the silent cage you willingly step into. You tell yourself life is good, your routines are predictable, your job pays enough, your relationships feel safe. You repeat the rituals of daily life, believing stability is freedom. But freedom is not measured by how predictable your mornings are, or how carefully you avoid conflict. It is measured by your ability to act without invisible chains. The comfort you cling to is a gilded cage. It glimmers. It promises safety. It whispers that everything is fine. But every day, you surrender a piece of yourself to its invisible bars. Your dreams sit on a shelf, gathering dust. Your impulses for adventure, for authenticity, for raw experience, are silenced by habit. Carl Jung once said, "Every form of addiction is bad, no matter whether the narcotic be alcohol, morphine, or idealism." The routines you praise, the comfort you honor, the habits you defend, they are addictions in disguise. You may not drink or smoke, but you are addicted to the illusion of security. You trade risk for predictability, passion for quiet conformity, and the world around you applauds your success, blind to the chains quietly tightening around your spirit. And then there is love, or what you call love. You think it protects you. You think it nurtures you. But what you often accept as love is attachment masquerading as care. A partner clings to you, not because they celebrate your wholeness, but because they fear their own emptiness. Friends demand loyalty, not out of respect, but out of need. You give yourself, thinking it is devotion, but you are surrendering pieces of your identity. Your opinions are muted to avoid conflict. Your desires are softened to prevent rejection. You are trapped in a delicate web where affection and approval are currency, and every smile or nod you receive costs you a fragment of who you are. Modern life magnifies this. Social media reinforces attachment to validation. Likes and comments become subtle shackles, convincing you that connection is life, when in reality, it is a veil that obscures freedom. You mistake approval for love, and in doing so, allow the invisible leash to tighten, pulling you back from the edges of your own potential. Denial is the final layer of this illusion. You see yourself as free, as fulfilled, as in control. But the truth gnaws quietly beneath the surface. How many times have you ignored that gnawing unease in your chest when your heart desired more? How many times have you justified staying in a relationship, a job, or a routine because this is how life works? Each justification is a brick in the wall between you and reality. There comes a moment, a quiet, unavoidable moment, when the veil shatters. Perhaps it is a betrayal, a sudden loss, a reflection in the mirror that no longer feels like you. You feel the walls closing in. You recognize that the comfort you defended, the love you trusted, and the denial you nurtured were never protective. They were the architects of your restraint, and in that realization, you taste both fear and liberation. Fear because the walls are real. Liberation because now, for the first time, you can see them clearly. You can choose. You can begin to step beyond the routines, beyond the dependencies, beyond the illusions. This is the threshold. One step forward, and the cage no longer confines you. You are free when you see through illusion. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. You think you are making choices. You think you are free. But your wounds, the ones carved silently into your early years, are the true architects of your life. They are silent masters, shaping every step before you even know it. Every fear, every doubt, every repeated mistake is a ghost of a moment long past. whispering instructions you believe are your own. You walk into a room, and your body tenses before your mind can act. Someone's tone cuts through you, and anger rises like wildfire. You swear it's their fault. Yet beneath the surface, the fire was lit decades ago, fueled by neglect, rejection, or abandonment. Carl Jung warned that the shadow you deny will emerge through projectio, through reaction, through the silent control of hidden pain. A childhood remark becomes a lifetime of hesitation. A long-forgotten betrayal becomes a pattern of mistrust. You cannot see it, but it pulls the strings of your choices, and every time you feel powerless, it is a wound speaking, guiding, commanding. You live in the illusion of control, unaware that your earliest injuries are steering your journey, shaping your relationships, and defining your identity without permission. And when these wounds remain unrecognized, they begin to play their roles on others. Projection is their theater. You see in someone else the cruelty, rejection, or judgment that you fear or despise in yourself. A friend snaps, a partner withdraws, a colleague criticizes, and suddenly your heart reacts with disproportionate intensity. You accuse, you argue, you lash out, convinced it is them, when in truth it is your shadow speaking through you. That insecurity, that anger, that shame is not theirs. It is yours, displaced and disguised. Modern life only magnifies this. Social media amplifies projection. Online interactions become arenas where your unresolved wounds manifest. A simple comment triggers rage or despair because your unhealed past is acting through the present. Every cycle of misunderstanding, every heartbreak, every repeated conflict is a mirror. It is showing you what you refuse to see, the wounds you carry, unacknowledged, dictating how you see the world, how you judge, and how you interact. Awareness is the first escape hatch. Only by recognizing your projections can you begin to reclaim the power that has been quietly stolen by your past. Yet even awareness does not automatically free you. Unprocessed trauma hijacks your mind in moments of crisis. A sudden rejection, a harsh word, a perceived failure triggers responses that feel automatic, instinctive, uncontrollable. You erupt, withdraw, panic, or shut down, wondering why you could not respond rationally. The truth is simple. The wound is in control. Your nervous system remembers what your mind has long forgotten. A shadow from the past rises to protect, to punish, to enforce patterns learned in youth. You may argue with it, reason with it, try to outrun it, but until it is consciously faced, it will react faster than thought. You are not weak. You are human, carrying the weight of invisible scripts written before your birth, before your understanding. This is why emotional freedom requires more than knowledge. It requires presence, confrontation, and integration. It demands that you stand in the storm of your old pain without flinching, naming the shadows, observing their grip, and choosing your response, rather than surrendering to automatic reaction. Only then can the silent masters become allies rather than jailers. You have the choice to step into that awareness, to meet the shadows, to reclaim the strings they have pulled for decades. Each moment you pause before reacting, each time you trace the origin of your anger or fear, you take back a fragment of freedom, stolen long ago. The wounds will not vanish. They never truly do. But when seen, named, and integrated, they transform. They become teachers, not tyrants. They no longer dictate the script. You write it. The path is not easy. but it is the only path to living fully, consciously, freely. You are free when you face the wounds that choose for you. You cannot step into the light carrying shadows you refuse to see. The moment comes without warning. One day, the illusions you've built, the routines you've clung to, the attachments you've believed were love, they all begin to crack. A single event, or a cascade of small betrayals, opens the floodgates. You feel it first as a tremor in your chest, a tension in your stomach, a hollow that swallows joy. Then it spreads. Your thoughts scatter, your mind races, and your emotions surge like a storm that cannot be tamed. You may be at work, at home, or walking the streets, and suddenly the weight of everything unresolved presses on you. All the denial, all the pretending, all the compromises. It crashes down, and you feel unmoored, suspended above a precipice you didn't even know existed. This is the moment of shattering. You are forced to confront the truth. The life you thought you controlled has been secretly scripted by your fears, wounds, and illusions. And as painful as it is, this collapse is necessary. It is the breaking of fragile barriers that have held you back, the rupture of false safety that must occur before real transformation can begin. The storm rages inside, tearing at your identity, but it also exposes the raw materials of freedom. As the collapse deepens, your sense of self begins to fragment. You look in the mirror and see pieces of yourself you no longer recognize. The confident persona, the successful mask, the obedient friend, the agreeable partner, they all dissolve, leaving behind a scattered array of raw, unprocessed emotions. You feel disconnected from your own body, your own thoughts, your own desires. Even familiar routines feel foreign. You question your motivations, your beliefs, your values. Who are you really? Beneath the masks, beneath the projections, beneath the stories you've told yourself for decades. This fragmentation is terrifying because it feels like losing the anchor to your own existence. But within this disorientation lies the first glimmer of clarity. When the old identity fractures, it reveals the gaps where authenticity can emerge. The chaos is not the enemy. It is the midwife of a deeper self. Modern life intensifies this sensation. Social media, constant comparison, relentless messaging. It layers pressure upon pressure. When the collapse hits, it feels total, like everything familiar has been stripped away. You are left with nothing but raw awareness. And in that void, you encounter the real question: who am I when the illusions fall? Desperation becomes the catalyst. When the old structures collapse and the masks crumble, you are forced to confront yourself fully. There is no hiding, no distraction, no comforting routine to cling to. You face the mirror and ask silently, who am I without these attachments, without this false love, without these familiar illusions? It is terrifying and liberating at the same time. The answer is not immediate. It emerges slowly, in moments of reflection, in bursts of honesty, in nights when sleep is elusive, and in mornings when you wake with a strange clarity. Desperation forces you to confront the void where your identity used to reside. It is here that choice becomes possible. You can rebuild consciously rather than unconsciously. You can integrate the shadows, embrace your wounds, and decide what kind of self you want to carry forward. The collapse, as brutal as it feels, is the crucible that tempers the soul. Without it, the old patterns would persist, quietly eroding your potential. But through this collapse, you have the rare opportunity to rise, not as who you were, but as who you are meant to become. You are whole when you confront the pieces of yourself. Sometimes what we call love is just a shadow wearing a familiar face. You believed it was love. You believed it was meant to fill the void, to soothe the ache, to make life whole. But when you peel back the layers, when the illusions fall away, you see it for what it really was. Need disguised as affection, dependence masquerading as devotion, control wrapped in tenderness. That friend who clung too tightly, that partner who demanded loyalty at the cost of your voice, that colleague whose praise felt like approval. You gave your heart thinking it was reciprocated love, but it was a mirror reflecting their own insecurities. Carl Jung said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." But what happens when the reaction is not mutual transformation, but silent extraction? When you look back, you see patterns repeating, boundaries crossed, autonomy sacrificed, all in the name of something you were told was love. Modern life amplifies this. We confuse constant messaging, validation on social media, and the curated intimacy of texts for true connection. But these are echoes, not substance. Real love nourishes, frees, and elevates. Dependency drains, confines, and distorts. Recognizing this distinction is painful, but awakening is never gentle. And then comes detachment. Not coldness, not bitterness, but liberation. You realize that the ties that once seemed unbreakable were chains you carried for others, not for yourself. The relief is subtle at first, a lightness in your chest, a quiet in your mind. You no longer bend to prove worth. You no longer chase approval as if it were oxygen. Emotional detachment is not a retreat from life. It is an entry into authenticity. You begin to see people as they are, not as you wish them to be. The partner who demanded constant affirmation is no longer a tyrant, but a teacher. The friend who withheld trust is now a mirror, reflecting your need for self-reliance. You step back and realize that freedom is not about pushing people away. It is about pulling yourself toward clarity. In this space, you learn to love without surrendering, to care without sacrificing, and to exist fully without needing validation. With detachment comes agency. You recognize that every choice, every boundary, every feeling can now be consciously made. No longer are you a participant in someone else's script. You are the author of your own story. You can choose relationships, pursuits, and actions, not from fear, desire, or compulsion, but from awareness and intention. That awkward silence, that moment of discomfort, that sudden urge to step away from a toxic pattern, these are no longer punishments but signals. They guide you toward alignment with your true self. You begin to reclaim the space that was once surrendered to illusion, to rewrite your narrative in a language of autonomy, courage, and authenticity. Each step forward becomes a declaration. You are no longer captive to false love. You are free to engage with the world fully, consciously, without compromise. You are free when you love without losing yourself. Until you confront your shadow, it will continue to govern your life from the dark. You have lived with it for years. The parts of yourself you hide, deny, or fear, the anger that flares unexpectedly, the envy you bury, the fear that tightens your chest, the desires you refuse to acknowledge. You have treated them as enemies, as weaknesses, as stains on your character. But the shadow is not your enemy. It is a reservoir of power, energy, and insight. Carl Jung wrote, One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Your shadow is the dark mirror, reflecting what you refuse to see. It carries your unclaimed strength, your unmet needs, your unrealized potential. The rage you see, oppress, can become courage. The fear you avoid can become intuition. The desires you hide can become creativity. What you feared as destruction can be transformed into creation. You have spent years reacting to it, avoiding it, letting it control your choices. But what if you turned toward it instead? What if you treated it as a teacher, a guide, a source of untapped power, waiting for acknowledgement? Imagine standing in front of a mirror, but instead of flinching from your reflection, you see the entirety of yourself, shadow included, and you bow, not in fear, but in recognition of its depth and potential. Facing the shadow requires a ritual of integration. You cannot simply will it away. You must engage it. Begin with meditation, allowing yourself to feel the emotions you usually suppress. Let the anger rise and flow without judgment. Let the sadness seep in fully until it no longer surprises or overwhelms you. Journal the impulses you deny, the thoughts you censor, the dreams you pretend are impossible. In these acts, you create dialogue with the hidden self. Symbolic confrontation works too. Write letters to your fears. Speak to your envy. Visualize yourself accepting what you reject. Each exercise dismantles the barriers you have built, dissolving shame, resistance, and avoidance. Modern life is filled with distraction, but true integration demands attention. When you sit quietly, alone, with no one watching, the shadow speaks. You listen, you record, you respond. Step by step, it stops being a haunting presence and becomes a partner in growth. The power that once scared you now serves you. The fire that once threatened to consume now fuels creation. This is not mystical. It is practical, deliberate, conscious work that transforms psychological energy into mastery. And then comes the emergence of freedom. After countless confrontations, after every journal entry, after each meditation, where you face the trembling, unstable parts of ourself, something shifts. You feel untethered. Choices no longer erupt from compulsion or fear. You pause, observe, and respond. Anger still arises, but it does not dictate your actions. Fear whispers, but it no longer commands. Desire pulses, but you decide when and how to act. The world has not changed, but your relationship to it has. You operate from awareness, not reaction. Power that was hidden in shadow is now in your hands, consciously wielded. Boundaries are clearer, intentions sharper, life richer. You move through each day with a sense of presence, a sense of ownership over yourself that no external force can shake. The shadow that once haunted you now walks beside you, a source of strength and insight. Every past wound, every suppressed impulse, every denied desire has been transformed into fuel for self-mastery. You are no longer a passenger in your own life. You are the driver, fully aware, fully alive, fully free. You are powerful when you embrace your shadow. Peace is not the absence of chaos, but the mastery of it. You have walked through storms, through shadows, through the collapse of illusions, and now you stand at the edge of something entirely different. Quiet mastery is not loud or dramatic. It does not demand attention. It is the calm that remains when old patterns no longer control you. The anger that once erupted now simmers briefly, observed and released. The fear that once immobilized you is now a signal, a guide, not a jailer. Carl Jung said, One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. You have faced the darkness, embraced it, and integrated it. And in that integration, a serenity emerges. Your thoughts are no longer storms, but rivers flowing toward clarity. Your emotions are no longer captors, but allies. The quiet mastery of self does not come from perfection. It comes from awareness, presence, and deliberate choice. You move through each day with a steadiness that surprises even yourself. You notice the subtle beauty of life, the way sunlight shifts through a window, the cadence of conversation, the depth of your own breath. These moments, once unnoticed or taken for granted, now become markers of freedom, proof that you have stepped beyond reactive living into conscious existence. With detachment comes freedom in action. You engage with the world fully, not as a hostage to emotion, but as a conscious participant. A conversation no longer triggers old pain. A challenge no longer provokes anxiety. You act from choice rather than compulsion. You invest in relationships without losing yourself. You pursue goals without clinging, without fear of failure, without surrendering authenticity. Social media, work pressures, even familial expectations no longer dictate your energy. You decide where your attention flows. Freedom in action is not reckless abandonment. It is deliberate engagement, a full presence rooted in the awareness that life unfolds whether or not you control it. You find joy in creation, curiosity in challenge, and calm in uncertainty. The world can roar around you, but inside there is a centered strength, an unshakable awareness that you are the arbiter of your responses, the guardian of your inner landscape. Each moment of choice becomes a declaration. You live consciously, you act intentionally, and you honor yourself in every interaction. And finally, a future chosen. You see a life not governed by old fears, by attachment, by compulsion, but sculpted intentionally, with every decision made from awareness. You visualize waking each day with purpose, moving through challenges with resilience, cultivating relationships that honor authenticity, pursuing work that fuels growth, embracing experiences that expand rather than diminish your spirit. Invisible chains of past wounds, projections, and illusions no longer hold sway. You imagine the person you are becoming, self-possessed, aware, capable of both deep love and fierce boundaries. Every decision is an opportunity to reinforce freedom. Every reflection, a reminder of your capacity to shape your reality. Hope is no longer a distant dream, but a tangible horizon. You understand that life will always present chaos, but you now choose how to meet it, transforming disruption into growth and uncertainty into possibility. The future is yours to design, anchored in peace, clarity, and mastery of self. You are free when you choose peace over chaos.